what's up everybody? This is Mr. Hunia for Human Development Day 12 of Distance Learning. And today we are going to be talking about addiction and moving on with our teen issues, focusing on drugs. So for today what you guys have is a short set of questions called addiction questions. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go through, teach, got PowerPoint up here, and then you guys are going to go ahead and answer those questions and submit them back. And that's it. No extra assignment, nothing else. Just those notes. All right, so let's get to it. So the first question we got is, what is addiction? And as you can see, we have this huge definition that's before us. Addiction is defined
as a chronic, relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. It is considered a brain disease because drugs change the brain. They change the structure and how it works, and the brain changes can be long-lasting and can lead to harmful behaviors seen in people who abuse drugs.
So here's what you need to know out of that definition. Addiction is a brain disease. It can change the structure of the brain and how it works. And then also, it's also characterized, in this case, by compulsive drug-seeking use, regardless of the harmful behavior that may follow. In this case, we're talking about drugs, but people can be addicted to other things. Chocolate, gambling, there are many things that people can be addicted to. But in this case, we're talking about drugs. So what happens in the physiology of addiction? Well, specifically in the reward pathway through the brain, what you see is that, for example, in this case, nicotine substance enters into the brain, stimulates the brain receptors, and then eventually has the brain spit out pleasure chemicals. So it's basically doing this thing where it's like, okay, if I take a puff on a cigarette, that nicotine triggers this reward pathway in my brain that makes me feel good, relaxed, excited, whatever. So then naturally, you may want to have more of that. And what happens is this can create what is called a tolerance. So in the beginning, a person who may be just smoking one cigarette and that makes them feel good because, it's just one cigarette, but their body eventually gets used to it. And then they want to continue to feel the release of those pleasure chemicals. So what happens is they have to up that level to get it. And that's where you start seeing a lot of issues with withdrawal and things like that, and seeing those issues of addiction because their body's tolerance continues to rise and rise and rise, and they're having to introduce more of that substance into their body in order to get the high that they originally felt. So now that we know that, let's go ahead and talk about these addiction myths. All right, so the first myth we have is that addiction is just a lack of self-control. That is incorrect. While it may appear that way on the outside because, there are certain people who don't understand what it's like to be addicted to certain things. People don't understand really how hard it is to give up a substance that your body constantly craves. And so a lot of times it's not really a lack of self-control, but rather it is a brain disease. In other words, you've introduced something into your body and it's changing the way your brain works. I'm going to oversimplify this, but non-addictive brain. Okay, I'm not addicted to anything, so, why can't someone just quit? Why can't they just quit? It's just as easy as just stop doing it. Addicted brain. I gotta have it. I gotta have it. This makes me feel good. If I don't get it, I'm going to go crazy. I gotta have it. So where you see is the two differences in the brains is just like these brain structures and how they think are two totally different things. So myth number 2, if I only use a drug occasionally, then I can't be addicted. All right. And this is not true because there are instances where there are people who've taken a drug once. They've only taken it one time, and it has launched them into the idea of wanting to try that same drug and go into more of an addicted spell. And then finally, it's always easy to tell when someone is addicted to a drug. And this is another thing. A lot of times, it's not. There are plenty of people in the world who, seem to live a very good life, seem to have it all together, and they could very well easily be addicted to drugs. I believe it was Robin Williams who once said cocaine. I believe it was once Robin Williams who said that using cocaine was God's way of telling you that you made too much money. And, where I get from that is the idea that, if you have all this money and you're so rich that you can afford cocaine and you can afford these drugs and you can snort them and do whatever, you clearly have too much money because you're using it to do all these harmful things to yourself. And the people that had too much money, you know, sometimes are considered to be the people that we see in the movies and the magazines, you know, all over Snapchat, you know, on Instagram, super famous. They're the rich, they're the famous, they're the lavish, and even they use drugs. They may not always look like what we would think a person who is quote unquote strung out on a drug may look like. And where a lot of this comes in is looking at the idea of what is called the high functioning drug addict. So this is someone who maintains a relative normal appearance and lifestyle while continuing to be addicted to a substance. They go to work, they come home, they're involved in the community, they raise kids. And even though they do maybe all of these things, you know, they're still managing to live a double life, covering up the fact that they may be addicted to a substance. And in some cases, but not like all of them, enablers can actually be one of the major factors that play into someone's high functioning behavior. So for example, an enabler is someone who allows for a drug user to continue their habit. So for example, I've watched a lot of like intervention shows and things, and one of the big things that happens is, for example, a person may be addicted to, you know, a hard substance, and they're addicted to it and they feel that they need it in order to cope with, you know, the stressors of life and things like that. And then the enabler doesn't want them to take the drug because they know that it's dangerous, but at the same time they think, okay, well, you know, they need to be able to have that in order to function, or maybe if I just let them take it a little bit, they'll be okay. And so what they're doing is they're allowing this person to continue that behavior even though they know that it is harmful. So that is going to be it for the video today, guys. Like I said, very simple, very easy, just taking the notes and put them on over into Canvas so that way I can grade them. You guys have been doing really well so far about trying to get that makeup work turned in and communicating with me, so I really appreciate that. But for now, y'all have a really good day, and I will see y'all tomorrow.